As Europe erupted into World War I, America declared neutrality as no military actions from the U.S. was required. President Woodrow Wilson stated that the United States would be impartial in thought as well as in action. This was perceived very well by the American public, as they supported not entering the war. Over time, relations between America and Germany weakened, along with tensions ultimately rising. This was a result of multiple U-boat attacks, with some being claimed as unfortunate accidents. During that time, Germany declared unrestricted warfare against all ships neutral or not in the war zone around Britain. The first event of an American vessel being sunk by a German cruiser was when the William Fry was destroyed when transporting grain to Britain. Germany claimed this was an unfortunate mistake. On May 7th, Germany destroyed a British liner named the Lusitania. With the sinking, 128 American lives were lost. Soon Berlin apologized and ended unrestricted warfare against ships, but later resumed the warfare at sea. This caused the United States to break relations with Germany and to appropriate $250 million to prepare for war. Soon after, Germany sunk 4 more American vessels. Also building U.S. tensions was the Zimmermann telegram, which was a diplomatic communication between Germany and Mexico issued by the German Empire. This telegram proposed a military alliance and asked of Mexico, in the instance of America joining the war, to take back the lost land of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas with proper funding from the German Empire. This wasn't a direct action against the U.S., but this enraged the American public and created strong anti-German feelings. After the sinking of the 4 more U.S. vessels, Woodrow Wilson asked Congress on April 2, 1917, for the declaration of war on the German Empire. Congress responded with an approval on April 6, 1917. War was officially declared on the German Empire. America is no longer neutral and therefore has entered World War I. America swiftly issued Liberty Bonds, which encouraged patriotic citizens to support America's involvement in the war. War bonds required anyone who participated to give the government money, but would be granted the money back with interest after the war. Also, the United States only had 400,000 active duty and reserve troops combined, and was in dire need of men. This led to the passing of the Selective Service Act, also known as the Draft. This required males aged 21 through 30, later changed to ages 18 to 45, to serve. Over 2.5 million men were drafted throughout America's involvement of the war. With the war being where it was, it ultimately was at a stalemate for both sides. With the addition of America's troops and supplies was a huge turning point for the Allies. The American involvement brought much spirit back into the men of other nations. This boosted morale and willpower. With many Allied nations weakened economically from the weight of the war, the addition of American supplies was crucial for the war effort. On top of that, the sheer number of the American forces helped determine the outcome of the war in favor of the Allies. During this time, the Germans launched a spring offensive, also known as Kaiserschlacht. The addition of Americans helped stop this offensive, and later the Allies launched their own, called the Meuse-Argonne. This was the largest operation to be carried out on the Allies' side of the war. The offensive stretched along the whole Western Front, and ultimately resulted in the Battle of the Argonne Forest, pushing the German forces back into Germany and concluded the war. This offensive also was the largest known in American history, using 1.2 million men and containing the second largest battle in American history, the Battle of the Argonne Forest. Eventually, Woodrow Wilson issued the 14 points to create peace and to separate America's involvement in long-term European tension. Later on, November 11th, the armistice was signed and finalized the end of the war. Also, the League of Nations was formed to prevent another tragic world war, but ultimately failed with the beginning of World War II. With America remaining neutral for the majority of the war, their involvement ultimately led to the Allied victory and brought peace and stability back to the world.